How are you this morning? Also doing well. I might cough a little bit today, but I promise I don't have COVID, so. So we're actually going to have a quick tour of the Aerogarden research facility in Colorado. And so one of the research and development guys is going to meet with us for part of this morning. Yeah, it was I ordered 50 Aerogardens for Ag in the Classroom, and they emailed and they're like, what are you using 50 of these for? And I was like, for teacher training. And they're like, would you like some tours? And it's like, yes, we would like some tours. So, and I'll let y'all know at the end. I'm hoping to get more, but I'm trying to keep the 50 reserved for Ag in the Classroom right now, which is in July. But I'll be putting in a purchase order for probably like 100 more of the systems. And then letting any teachers, ag ed or science or elementary, request one. So keep a lookout for something in the next couple of months.
Where do we keep a lookout? Just on email or? Okay.
So probably email. I'll probably go through ag ed to email out for their mailing list, but maybe Twitter as well, but probably email. Emily just email everybody that was here. The awkward silence post other talking, so.
I would do the first couple just to show like what to do and how it's done. The worst part about all of this. Where you had all the equipment and stuff.
Yeah, usually she's kind of grant. I think it's but it was maybe like the second year there, a couple years ago, I got a grant. That deadline grant.
Oh, yeah.
And at that time, when I got the grant, we did like, and I said for boilers, like we were gonna do the range, and so then also all of the filtering equipment. And so we got the grant.
And then Kevin Tom, Daniel's brother, she had her first batch of oil, so they ended up pushing us. But all of those are, yeah, we finally used it. We had loaned out our equipment more than we, I mean, we had never even used it and loaned it out.
It's so it's expensive, but if you maintain it well, like, it's a really nice truck.
Yeah.
The ones that we were using, are 3 years old, and still in really good shape. You just have to clean them really good. It's disgusting.
Back in our storage shed, and I've never opened it. I was looking at stuff in generally, so it would be nice to, I just don't, I have the old stuff. I know.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool truck. It's my favorite part about it. It's like, of all the live stores that are working on it, it is the most
Hey, David, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
I can. How are you guys today?
We are doing well. How are you?
Not bad. Start of the new week. All the time to grow new stuff.
Perfect. Well, not everybody is in here yet, but when they are, I will introduce you and we can get started in just a bit.
Perfect. Yeah. If anyone has any questions in the meantime, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll be turning my camera off.
Anybody have a question? Okay, they said not yet.
Perfect. Okay.
We just get started at 9. Are there multiple sessions going on?
Yeah, there'll be multiple
Okay.
sessions, and then yeah, this one ends at 9:50.
Perfect.
And then he's gonna present up here.
Uh-huh.
If you wanna walk in front and then just click the center button,
Okay.
it'll stop tracking and that.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, David, we'll go ahead and get started. It is 9, so anyone who's going to be in here should be. And so while David gets his camera turned on again, this is David Flores. He's with R&D at Aerogarden, and we met a week or two ago and thought that this would be a good time for y'all to kind of see their research and development. And what I would like y'all to do as you're watching the tour is maybe think about a project that would involve one or two of these that you think a student could do, and we'll talk about some of those at the end. Go for it, David.
Awesome. So good morning, everyone. Like Beatrix said, my name is David Flores. I'm the lead biologist here for Aerogarden. We're one of the sub-business units of Scotts Miracle-Gro. We were acquired in 2021 fully after several years of partial acquisition. This is our lab. So this is the main lab here in Boulder, Colorado. We have about 300 gardens just in this one particular lab. We do everything from regular viability testing on our current options to new varietal testing on things like asparagus ferns or, new bok choys, purple super hot peppers, things like that. In the background, you can hear a garden screaming right now, probably. I apologize, I needed water this morning. I just got in a few minutes ago. But in here, we have racks of 9 gardens generally, 9 bounties on a rack. And we test 3 reps at all times just to make sure we're not finding any variability. This is our second most popular garden, the Bounty. The most popular is called the Harvest. The difference between them are generally the pods on the deck. So, and you're going to see these starting to kick on now, because it's starting to hit 8 o'clock here. So what you can see is each deck comes with X amount of pods, so Bounties will always have 9. Our Harvest will always have 6. Things like our farms, which I'm going to try giving you a good example of our farm. Put in our farm here with all of our chives. This is the farm 24. This will have 24 pods, and you can have up to 24 plants in here with a fully automatic light that goes up or down, or backwards, if anything. All of the gardens themselves are automatically set when you, let's see if I can find a good example here. Here we go. So we're running a new nutrient formulation trial on our current nutrients, and we just want to see different things. We just want to see how the morphology changes as we go. When you start a new garden, what you have here is our regular touch panel. And you have things like vacation mode, quick plant garden tips, light options, and lights on and on. Every time you start a garden, you're going to hit quick plant, and it'll walk you through step by step on how to start a new garden. Going through and showing you new categories of plants. You can choose a lettuce, a herb, a tomato, a pepper. And I apologize for the shaky camera. I am currently unplugging gardens so you don't hear screaming in the background. But these gardens can do pretty much all of it. We are able to grow full-size peppers across the board. These are actually we crossbred these on accident with some poblanos and a ghost pepper. So these are some of the hottest bell peppers I've ever had in my life. But we also have smaller options too. Like this. This is a really great option for younger students. A 3-pod sprout, enough light that it can still grow a full-size tomato, as you can see. And this actually will produce quite a bit, so there's multiple tomatoes in there. We actually just got through and trimmed a bunch of this back. We had already did our first harvest. But we can grow pretty much anything. We do our best to grow as much as possible and try new things because it's really important for us to keep refreshing our catalog. We have things like our Harvest Excel, where we take our harvest, our base model harvest that has 6 pods, and we've now made it so that we have up to 18 inches of grow space. These are fully customizable in the sense that you can continue to increase the size of your plant by increasing the verticality of your garden. And that goes for every single one of the gardens. Each garden has its own expandable rate. So sprouts will go up to 10 inches of height. A harvest will go up to 12. A Harvest XL, 18. A Bounty up to 24 inches. And then our farms are 32 inches of grow space. And we're actually taking the steps to grow new things like corn on our farms. We're having a little bit of trouble. We're adjusting our nutrient formulation on this just because we're thinking that we need a little more nitrogen, a little more magnesium in this water. But I'll always take suggestions too from the crowd on this one. You guys might have better ideas than I will.
Try more zinc from Greenham. Yep, more zinc.
We'll give that one a shot. That's actually a really good one. So we'll grow everything. All of our herbs are full cataloging here just to make sure that we always have stuff available in case people like Avie. So Avie has joined us. Avie is part of our brand management and digital marketing. Avie is a really important member of our team because they help keep me on track when it comes to new projects as well as things that we're going to be putting online, any questions that people might have. We like to make sure that we keep communications open as much as possible. So something like this, these are part of our gourmet herbs kits, some of them. We have things like thyme and parsley. We have things like savory. We have things like sage that'll grow to full sizes. And then, for example, our basils. Basils are some of our most popular plants that we can sell. These are only about 30 days old, and we've taken 3 harvests off them now, sitting at about 14 inches or so, 15 inches. We generally will have full-grown basils within about 25 days, and they maintain for up to about 70 to 90 days. Same thing with our purple basils. And as you can see, we have different models of gardens in here. What I first showed you with the quick plant function, that's our newer model. Those are the models that we currently have in market. However, we still like to test in our older models because a lot of our consumers have older models that they refuse to give up because they work so well. So we're still testing Aerogarden extras and ultras, 7s, so on and so forth. But then we also have things like this. This is one of our older ghost peppers in the lab. It's about 8 months old now. And we had a real big issue with it about 2 months ago where it dropped every single leaf. Roots looked awful because oftentimes, because we use deep water culture hydroponics, a root mat will form, as you can see, where it completely overtakes the entire base of the garden itself, meaning that water can't flow correctly, meaning that there's not enough oxygen in the water itself. So what do? Well, we introduced the oxygen pump. And what we had was a complete reblooming and rejuvenation of this plant. So we're testing things like dissolved oxygen in water. We're testing things like nutrient formulations to understand how we can better grow our plants. Some dill for us as we walk through. And then some mint as well. And the reason I'm showing you all this is because I just want to show the range of what these gardens are really capable of. For example, this is just 4 tomato plants in a single garden, our cyan tomato. And this is at 75 days. You have close to 2 or 3 pounds of cherry tomatoes on this plant that'll be right by day 90. But beyond that, we're always testing things like varieties. We work with a number of breeders across the country to understand how we can find better dwarf varieties, ultra mini varieties, anything basically that'll fit in the countertop spaces, because we want people to have options. So this is actually the Heartbreaker Series from Krudak, if anyone's familiar with Krudak and Caroline. All of these will form tomatoes that shape little hearts at the bottom. And we're trying to introduce new novel things because it's really important for us in the indoor agriculture tech study to understand what consumers really want. Tomatoes are extremely popular, herbs are extremely popular, but we're also the ones that need to be able to form the opinion of consumers as they go forward, or meet the needs of consumers as they go forward too. Another example of how well these grow is the full-size bell pepper. They'll pick them to full ripeness. Extremely old poblanos, I call them poblancos just because anchos form from both poblanos. Eggplants. We can get full eggplants on here, they're dwarfs, but we have what we call fairy tale eggplants. We also do things with our light panels. So Aerogarden offers 45 watt LED panels. And what we found is that, of course, like any other plants, anything else, increasing light means increasing yield. So we found that as we increase the amount of light we're adding, so we have already a panel that has at 6 inches about 450 micromoles of light. But in addition to that panel, we then introduced a 45 watt LED, and all of a sudden you can double or up to triple your yield by increased light and oxygen. Full lines of tomatoes across the board. We have a golden tomato, a mini tomato called a micro mini. We have our mega cherry, which is our taller cherry tomatoes, and our red heirloom. We like to keep our catalog pretty mixed in, make sure that we're meeting everyone's wants. But we can also grow flowers. The Aerogarden is fantastic for growing flowers. So in case you have younger students or students who might not be as interested in agriculture as you'd like, you can still show them the joy of growing with something as beautiful as pulleys or marigolds or even zinnias. And these will grow full size all the time. We always make sure that all of our peppers do grow out to full maturity because we want to see the morphology of them, we want to see the production of them. We want to understand what the consumer will experience. And this is just showing a little more of our flower selection. And we do barely nothing. We do basically nothing to these plants as they grow. This is all from quarterly viability. So what we do is we plant them, we add our nutrients, we track germination for 21 days, and then after that all we do is add water and nutrients every 14 days after that. And these plants will pretty much grow on their own. The ease of use is one of the biggest fun points of the Aerogarden. It also makes teaching students about them that much simpler. I have a much younger cousin, she's about 10 years old, and she has a developmental disability. And what I found is that even with something like this, it's simple enough that she's able to take in the information and grow with this kind of garden easily. She has a sprout, a small little 3-potter, but she really, really enjoys the flowers that she has because we're able to grow many petunias and regular cascading petunias, and she really, really enjoys that. Beyond that, though, the lab also does quality control work. So we're pretty bare right now. We just got done taking down a bunch of stuff, but every week we get at least 100 pods or so from all of our warehouses showing us their weekly production, and we grow it out to understand. Is there a change in the mix of a bunch of purple super hots? We want to understand if there's contamination, if there's germination issues, anything like that. We want to catch it before the consumer does. We're introducing some newer peppers too in the future. A lot of really, really fun ones. A lot of really fun tomatoes too in the future. And we're also working on newer concepts too. So things like cracky systems. We want to understand them better. Kratky came about in about 2012, I believe. It was a professor out of Hawaii, if I remember correctly. His last name was actually Kratky, K-R-A-T-K-Y. Basically, the concept is you're able to take a quart-sized ball jar and grow in just that amount of space. Produce tomatoes.
So David, do you have any extra air in those at all, or is it just the jar and water?
Currently, it's just the jar. So this is our phase 1 trials. We wanted to understand what would happen to these plants just as it is. We want to understand, will it cause stress like we're seeing right now? Will the plant actually survive to fruit output? In our phase 2 trials, we're going to be testing things like oxygen, light distance, and then the amount of nutrients in our premix. That's a really good question. That's something we definitely are looking at because we want to make sure that the roots, which are really hard to see, I apologize. There we go. We want to make sure that these roots continue to develop, especially the air roots. The idea is that as this water falls down, air roots develop in the top pocket. What we're not those thin angel air roots that you usually see in an aeroponic system. What we want to find are those, and we're not really seeing those yet. So we're trying to understand that it could be oxygen, it could just be the fact that it's like almost like a blood and drain kind of non-contiguous cycle. I'm going to flip the camera on this for a second as we take a walk through the building. So we got this building right before the pandemic started. I think John, who's our R&D lead, said they moved into this building in late 2019, early 2020, and then a couple months later, pandemic hit and everyone went home. So we have a 14,000 square foot building for 6 people now, 8 people. So what that means is that they've allowed me to take over the vast majority of this building and all the open space to completely expand our land from about 1,100 feet to now more than 3,000 square feet. We're openly expanding more and more. We're getting new racks of gardens at all times and trying to do our best to expand our testing capabilities. We have a pipeline of testing that's at this point about 6 years deep, and we're really, really excited to make sure we can do as best as we can to meet all needs. It's a little dark over here, so I apologize. But we're also working on new innovations. They're not on right now because they're on the timer. This is a very strict trial we're doing. But we also work on houseplants and soil. We do work on soil plants in here. It's very rare, but we do, because we're also testing new light spectra. It's really important for us to understand what spectra of light will actually grow these plants the best, and even more so, what spectra of light will people like you and me tolerate in their homes. As we can obviously tell from those very, very bright gardens, it's obnoxious sometimes to have that light in your home. Consumers don't always want that extreme brightness. What we're doing is we're trying to tamper this slightly with our spectrum in order to make that both pleasurable for us and for the plant itself. We also do in-house QC. Sylvia is a fantastic addition to our team. She finished grad school, I think, in 2020. She's an engineer, and all she does every single day is break down gardens that might have a defect. The consumers send back and say, hey, I have a problem. She'll break it down, and she completely fixes the issue and takes it to the root cause in our factories back in China, and she's able to take all of our failure rates. She's taken a number of our gardens down to below 0.5% failure for all of our parts, which is really, really extreme considering we have close to, I think, 2 or 3 million gardens in the ecosystem right now. So as you can see here, we always like to keep stuff in the walkways. We want to make sure that as people walk through, they have the opportunity to either reach in and grab some fruit or vegetables, or just to reach their hands through some lavender and smell some really good smelling lavender. But we'll take our cayennes, and as you can see, it's massive. Full-size cayennes, chichitos, and our eggplants as they develop, and bananas. And Beatrix made sure to mention this. She said that she was really upset seeing lavender growing in this, considering the lavender issues that happen in soil. But this is exactly right. Our gardens can grow lavender beautifully. The scent off of this is absolutely fantastic. I wish you guys could smell the way it smells in the hallway now that I just rubbed my hand through that.
Has anybody ever had lavender dye on you?
Sorry, what?
I was just asking them if they've had lavender dye on them. I feel like it is the plant that just dies every single time. So, sorry, David. Go ahead.
No, it dies for me too. That's actually a really big issue that I have growing as well. I only grow my lavender now in the Aerogarden because every time I would buy it, all of a sudden there's root issues and I have to completely cull it back. And it always drove me nuts purchasing lavender and then throwing it away 2 or 3 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
So we also do nutrient testing. We found a fantastic mini compact slicer. So we could grow a full-size slicer tomato. In our phase 1 testing, because we always do multiple phases of testing on new varieties, we developed horrible blossom emerald. The tomato was inedible up until production, up until final ripeness when we culled everything. Tomatoes were just black at the bottoms. So we wanted to readjust because our nutrient has never had problems before. We have calcium in our nutrients. Really what it comes down to is how well you shake the bottle. We always recommend when we have it in our bottle even to shake vigorously our nutrient because we do have sunlight. The calcium always settles out. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to test our control again. We wanted to see what the Aerogarden nutrient does with just a vigorous, ridiculously vigorous shaking where we do a minute-long shake. We do an 8 milliliters per gallon pre-mix where we'll mix in 8 milliliters of our nutrient into a gallon of water and then feed with that constantly. And then we're also doing a CalMag addition because we want to understand how we can do better with calcium, not just for blossom emerald, but for flavor, because obviously flavor is a big deal to all of our consumers. We've had our first production already, as you can see. We're not getting any blossom emerald across the board as of right now. So we're hoping that this next run, we really weren't just seeing nutrient shake issues, and we'll just go from there. We test things like new cucumbers. And as you can see here, this is a mini cucumber growing in about 14, not even 12 inches of space, and we have multiple cucumbers out of this, and it's still developing. This is only at about 50 days. Same thing with our eggplants. This is just 3 eggplants. We'll have about close to a dozen or so babies very soon. And the new varieties like basil everleaf, basil dolce fresca, and basil upper everleaf. So we have an emerald power, which is a new very compact basil. Dolce Fresca, which is a much larger leaf basil. And then an everleaf, which is basically just a very, very slow bulb. You can take this for about 110 days, from what I understand, without bolting. In the Aerogarden, you could probably take it for close to a year without bolting. One of the really exciting things about Aerogardens, too, is you can technically grow vegetables. We grow, in our current layout, beet greens. But with beet greens comes beets. So you're able to grow these full-size beets, extremely sweet beets, and pick them right up out of the garden. You're able to pull that pod off, and you're able to harvest that beet and eat that entire beet. And that's across the board. So long as you give these plants enough time and keep refreshing them, keep giving them nutrients, they'll produce for you full roots. We'll grow full garlic bulbs with our chives, our garlic leaf chives. We're currently working on I'm going to try bringing in a fingerling potato. So I think it'd be really, really fun to try all these new concepts. Jalapenos. And this is more just the understanding of our different gardens. So this is the Farm 24 Plus. As you can see, same thing as the Farm 24 that I showed you in the lab. The difference is the height. So this one goes up to about 24 inches, I believe, of grow space, and then the Farm Excel goes up to 32. So you have about 10, 24, and 32 inches of grow space available. Meaning you can grow as many cucumbers as you like all the time. Or any other vine. We've done squash in here. We've done, someone in our Facebook groups has done watermelons. There's so many options to choose from. One of the last things I'd like to show you is one of our newest gardens that we put out recently, and that's called the balloon system. The balloon system is an amazing feat, in my opinion. I've been growing professionally for several years now, did my master's at Purdue, and I'm absolutely enthralled with these systems. This is the bloom. The bloom are fully automated grow chambers. So what we have here is that same cucumber I've been showing, growing in a perfect environment at just 35 days. And I'm going to walk you through this step by step. So it has a trellis that it comes with. You plant your single plant, or up to 6, depending on your deck itself. You then load in 7 gallons of water or so. And you fill your nutrient reservoirs. You have pH up, pH down, row A, micros, and then balloon. We use the Botanicare, Flora Grow, Flora Micro, Flora Bloom in our system, so it comes with that. Basically, once you fill these up, you then set a recipe in the onboard computer, and then that recipe will automatically dose based on what you input. This is a fully automatic doser that then mixes in. And you have a constant every 2 seconds. This is that's an actual number. Every 2 seconds, the system will take a pulse, and it'll understand, 1, what's your ppm, 2, what's your pH. And it'll always make sure you're within range. Why that matters so much is because of these lights. So you and we cannot see these top lights up here. We can see a very faint red. This is actually far red light. Mixed in with our regular lighting, as well as a small UV component, so that we don't deal with intumescence, and we can really build the canopy of all of our plants entirely. Humidifier, evaporative cooling system, so that we maintain constant cooling. Carbon filter outputting, so that way you don't have to worry about any kind of scents or any other issues affecting your plants. It comes with its own camera, so that way you can take time lapses, single photos, so on and so forth. And like I was saying with the recipe, every bloom has this onboard system, where you can go through and you have all these different options. So in some cases, you can just hit quick plants, and it'll ask you, do you want to select from the stuff that we already have, a few of our favorites? Do you want to download a grow recipe from our cloud, because there's a bunch of people on the blooms who have fantastic recipes already, or do you really want to be advanced and you want to create your own? And what that means is you can then create your own, or you can pick one of the ones that we already have, And from there, I'm going to go to our recipe right now so you can see what I'm talking about. You can see our active recipe. And you'll have up to 99 stages of grow, where you can fully customize time and days of that stage itself, the target ppm for that stage, the ratios of each of the different nutrients, your pH, your lights on, for so how long you want your lights on your photo period, and then your daytime temperature. And you're able to do that all the way through for the entire plant. Like I said, 99 stages of growth space. Meaning that you can grow pretty much anything. Cucumbers, lettuces. We just put down some sunflowers, but also monstera. Or we also do honey testing here. What we found is, amazingly, you're able to take things like a regular known hemp plant with known genetics. So we use AOFTA certified seeds. And we take a plant that averages 0.15 THC in a bloom, throw it, and it comes out to 0.455, almost tripling the amount of cannabinoids and the terpenes present in the plant itself. We don't know exactly why it's doing that. We believe it's the far red, but we've now proven that concept out several times, much to our own chagrin. We always do our best to stay within legal limits. That's why we choose certified seeds. And every single time we are finding that we are destroying our plant because the bloom just grows it so well. Those are all the gardens we have. I leave you just with the list, the last little bits. We also do competitor garden testing. I do use one of our top competitors, and we always want to understand why people like them, how to grow the plant. So we do side by side and see an I do versus every single one of our gardens. And what we found is that the farm really does do the best. With that, guys, I'll open myself up. Any questions about anything?
So, Michael, I got a question for you. So, those Aerogardens, can they take more than one variety of plant in that garden? Like, so I grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, like, at the same time, so like if you wanted to grow, say, one pepper plant, one tomato, one basil, you can grow all of them at the same time in the same chamber?
Yeah, so that's actually our experience. So we offer things like, we have on the Aerogarden.com website as well as Amazon, things called our seed pod kits. We've already predetermined a lot of different combinations of plants. Our most popular is our gourmet herbs kit. It comes with 9 different varieties. You grow them all at one time to a fantastic fruit garden. But if you wanted to grow a tomato and a pepper, yeah, grow a tomato and a pepper together. We generally recommend, let me show the deck again. We generally recommend 1 plant per 3 holes, especially when you're growing larger vegetables. So you could do tomato, pepper, and your basil, just like you'd like. Or if you're growing on lettuces, you can do a full 9 deck of lettuce, a full 9 of herbs, a full 9 of flowers, just to make sure you have a full bouquet. So absolutely, combinations, we love them, and we always see them online, and it's always fun for us to see what people are doing with their gardens. Here's 3 peppers all at once, and you can absolutely mix all you like and fill it. Here we go, this is a really good example. So this was started a while ago. I haven't printed this one, because we're actually going to take it down, so I apologize for the look of it. Otherwise, this would be grown full out. This is a tomato, a jalapeno, chives, and cilantro. Because we're actually doing like a salsa kit. Things like that. I want to understand how I can make a salsa from a single garden.
The pods, they're all seed pods, or do they come as seedlings, or how do they?
Yeah, it's a great question. So all of our pods, let's see if I can find you a blank one. Yeah, here we go. All of our pods will come like this. We have 2 options. We have pre-seeded, which is called our seed pod kits. And we also have something called our Grow Anything kit. So what's the difference? The difference is the seeds themselves. Our Grow Anything kit basically allows you, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull this pod out so you can see it. Our Grow Anything kit allows you to take seeds and plant them in this blank peat that we provide you. And then you're able to take that and then drop it into your pot that we provide you. Put a label on it so that way you don't develop too much algae, or any algae, ideally. Put a dome on it so that way you eat good domes. So that way you have a small greenhouse effect. And then you plant it with our nutrient. Or the other option is it comes in a seed pod kit. And I'm going to put my phone down just for a second. I apologize. This is one of my blank pots, so please don't judge me. I just broke it apart so you can see. All of our pods have a dibble in them, and generally a seed would be sitting right in here, inside the center of the pod itself. Generally fits down within the depth is just a few millimeters. We don't like it being too deep because it is a deep water filter system, so we want the seed to be just above the water line, not on the water line itself, so we don't develop any root issue. So pre-seeded or your own seed. We completely give it up to you as a consumer to do what you'd like.
Any other questions?
Have you ever had any pest issues with your peat with your pods?
With the peat in the pods, no. So we always make sure that the manufacturer we get it from, they're qualified to always take care of our peat. We've used them for a number of years. Our peat does not develop any pests during transport or production. However, people do deal with pests at home, just like in the garden. I want to be very clear. It's not like this is the ultimate system where we know pests. We do deal with pests, but it's generally stuff that you bring in from your own house. Fungus gnats that you have from your dishwasher, a mealy from your banana or something like that. But we ourselves have never seen any pests in our peat.
What's your biggest customer service issue or biggest complaint that you've had?
That's a great one. So because we offer a 100% guaranteed germination, we want to make sure that all of our consumers have the best experience possible. So if a consumer says, hey, my pod didn't germinate, we say, let us know which one didn't germinate and we'll send you a fresh one. So not our biggest complaint in that people are complaining every single day. Our replacement rate, I believe, is closer to like only 1% for close to 20 million pods produced every year. But it is a complaint. Beyond that, it's just making sure that people actually understand how to use the gardens. We include phenomenal welcome kits in all of our gardens. In fact, I'm going to show you down here just for a second with a quick setup guide and even a recipe, so that way you can grow and make something off your first grow. We include all this, but a lot of times consumers they don't read this. However much I'd like them to, they don't read instructions, and I'm sure we've all experienced that where people just decide, hey, I didn't read instructions, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. And that's really frustrating, but if everyone reads their instructions, you pretty much get the full gist, so there's no issue really with the gardens against them. Other issues that we have consumer services wise, people really have high expectations that these gardens will actually do every single thing. Why did my garden not make a noise when it went to low? Why did my garden not tell me, like, in an actual sense, that I no longer have water? Well, these gardens on each of the pages, they tell you high, medium, low, or full, medium, or low water. You just actually have to read your garden every once in a while. While I love to say that these are completely set it and forget it, some maintenance, like any garden, is still required. Any other questions? I'm loving this.
Anything else? Okay, David, thank you so much. And David has said he's happy to give tours. So if you had a class that was really interested in something with hydroponics, then I can get your contact information to David or however we pass things back and forth. And feel free to contact him, and he can also answer questions.
Yeah, if anyone if you'd like right now, my contact information, my email is David, D-A-V-I-D, .flores, F-L-O-R-E-S, at scotts.com. That's S-C-O-T-T-S.com. If anyone has any questions or wants to know more about the gardens or just wants to understand how we're growing everything that we're growing or what we're working on in the future, or if you have an idea of something that we can work on, please feel free to let me know at any point in time. We work with as many educators as we can because it's important that the next generation of indoor agriculture actually have a step in the door. We don't want this to be a situation like I had where I went into college not actually understanding anything about agriculture. I was from Chicago, I was from deep in the city, did not understand agriculture, had never heard of horticulture before college, and then I ended up finishing with my master's in horticulture. So I think it's really important that we start young and get these younger agriculture people in as soon as possible. I really appreciate everyone's time today. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, David. Okay.
How cute that his wife can afford it.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go through this whole thing. There weren't that many slides to begin with, but what other questions do y'all have? Okay, I'll tell you kind of why we went on this pathway. So we've got some extra grant money that we're trying to wrap up. You hate to look a gift horse in the mouth, but NEFA gave us an extra $500,000 for a grant a few years ago. That's really hard to spend when you weren't originally planning on having that extra money. And then the pandemic hit, and so that made it difficult to spend money because 2 years of not being able to have a lot of these type meetings. So about a month and a half ago, me and Kelly Wardlaw from 4-H started talking about what can we do to wrap up some of this grant, which is in sustainable biofuels. And so one of the ideas we had was doing like a little Aerogarden hydroponic system for soybeans, since that's one of the main biofuel sources. And so I bought 50 of these before ever even planting a soybean into one, because I was like, it's gonna be fine. And yeah, it hasn't been as easy. So these are actually edamame varieties. These are the Toya variety, because every single typical normal soybean that I've tried, like a filled oilseed soybean, has not germinated. They've all molded, and I've done 9 of them so far. So I'm going to keep trying, but even that's kind of why David and I started talking, because he's like, if you're having any trouble, let me know. And I was like, I can't get a normal soybean to germinate. And so even he has said, yeah, that'll be interesting. So one of the suggestions was to try germinating it like in a petri dish type thing and then putting it in once the radicle actually comes out. So I have not done that yet because I am hard-headed, maybe is the best way. I'm like, I will get it done in this without having to germinate it outside, but we'll see. So that's kind of the idea, was especially for pre-K all the way up to 12th grade, is having this kit available of getting some soybeans, getting the Aerogarden, and teachers being able to incorporate that into their class. So when Emily asked about doing this, I was like, hey, that works great. We'll just go ahead and talk about this some more. So I am going to be ordering more of these. I know that this is fun enough that I don't know if I'm going to have enough for every single person that requests one to get one, but I'm going to try to order as many as humanly capable with our grant money that is left. So, because truthfully, I am the same. I was involved in 4-H and FFA throughout school, but I think having something like this for students to be able to use, especially for a student in town, they could still have a project, do something in their bedroom, and not have to have 30 acres to go do a wheat project or something on. So having that experience, I think, would be really great for students. And there are some places, so if you wanted to try to do some actual like row crops, I just ordered some of this. This is from agclassroomstore.com. I don't know if y'all ever been to this website, but this is from Utah State. And they actually have a whole line of seeds that they call space plants, because they're dwarf plants meant to be grown in a more hydroponic type system. So like I said, I just got these in on Friday, so I haven't planted them yet. But the Hoyt soybean was actually developed in the 60s, like as a normal row crop soybean, but it doesn't get more than 12 inches tall, which this model caps out at 12 inches. So it should be a nice little bumblebee soybean plant in there, and will go fully developed all the way to the end of its life cycle. They have others though. They have some wheat varieties, so being Oklahoma, that you can also get from them. And so they just have some of these different dwarf tiny plants that could actually be grown in one of these smaller units, so you don't have to get the farm to get 32 inches of grow space. Some of the ideas, so did anybody come up with some ideas for what you would do?
I mean, if you had more than one, you could do nutrient formulation trials of whatever, different nutrients in one versus the other.
Okay, so we have
Crossbreeding.
nutrient formulations.
He said they accidentally crossbred peppers, so you could do some sort of.
And that's the one thing that I worry about sometimes with peppers and tomatoes. So you can sometimes make a really hot tomato and you have them right next to each other. What else? I know, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I asked y'all to start thinking about experiments. It was not nice.
I mean, starting something in soil versus starting it in there.
Okay.
I don't know anything about the ag ed proficiency, so this is a question mark, but when he said something about his niece having special needs, I thought maybe a ag ed proficiency kid could pair with a special ed kid, and I don't know, some sort of ag ed thing with the growing.
Ag ed with other students. I think it gives a whole new dimension to like a think, pair, share, but with.
What does a kit like that cost?
So this one I got for less than $100 because they had a sale, but they seem to have had like a Father's Day sale and a such and such sale, because I think I got this for Memorial Day sale. So like they've been pretty consistent in having some sort of sale or deal. But without it being on sale, I think on Amazon it's like $129. And that's for the kit. The kit will come with a seed packet. But so what I did is I just popped all of the tomato seeds out because I didn't want the tomato seeds. So I literally just set over the trash can and scooped them all out and then put my soybeans in and went from there. I had ordered blanks like he was showing as well for the ones that are going to be given out to the ag in the classroom teachers. But those blanks come in sets of 50 on their website. So you can get like the 50 with the little peat pellet thing inside of the little plastic. And when you have these, I've done a lot of things of what he said not to do. So I did not buy extra little stickers to put on there. I was like, I'll deal with algae. Like, I'm not gonna pay extra to get a little sticker. But he did say that a lot of people get hesitant about taking the garden on and off a lot because they're like, I don't want to hurt the roots. And he's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, clean it out, do whatever you need to do. And so this top plate lifts off. I have to tell Marta I'm sorry when she gets here tomorrow. But you can see the roots. You can see root differences quite a bit. So this could be something of having students look at the rooting amounts on and just formulate why. A lot of it, this plant is obviously much healthier and growing a lot bigger. But the roots are in pretty decent shape. Now, these are soybeans. So what are these roots missing? I'm going to put y'all on the spot. Yep. The nodules. No, you're good. So there's no nodules. I didn't put an inoculant on the seed. Nodules don't survive in anaerobic conditions. So in that sense, it was like, why even bother? Because that could be something of maybe you figure out how much oxygen a soybean plant needs in a hydroponic system to even have its own nodules, because this runs for, I think, 5 minutes out of an hour. So like every 20 minutes or so, it like pops on for a little bit. But it's definitely not enough oxygen to keep a nodule alive. So even if it did form a nodule, you would slice it open, it would be gray, it wouldn't be red any longer. But even looking at like botany publications where they did inoculate them, they all grew them in a separate medium first and then transplanted them into the hydroponic system. And even those, they might have like 2 or 3 nodules. So unless that's your experiment, just put the nutrient solution in. It's still getting the nitrogen. The only benefit of that is to reduce your nitrogen. It's not going to hurt the plant's growth. Something else that you could do is clipping. So if you had this, which I kind of have done here, to try, this is a normal soybean plant. It gets 24 inches tall, is what it says online. So last week, I just clipped off right above where the cotyledons, and it had new growth coming out and the axillary buds. So trying to keep this shorter. Over the weekend, this hit the lights, and so it got sun scald on the leaves from just sitting up against the lights all weekend. So I'm gonna I'll do it right now. Just took off the terminal bud. So that'll start to branch out more as well, which I think is really good, even if I don't know how many of you teach the plant hormones in a semester. I don't know how much ag ed has changed. Whenever I was in FFA, we did our CDEs. We did not actually do class. So with that being said, my ag ed teacher, when we were doing our plant lesson, I think the first week, we flipped open the book and he's like, "You'll never see that soil texture triangle again in your life." And I was a soils major all the way through my PhD. So I had the soils texture triangle a lot in my life. But if you do plant hormones and you take off the terminal bud, you can talk about the influence that auxin then loses, and you get that lateral growth coming out. And so this is gonna bush out a lot now. So it could be a fun demonstration. So there's a lot of things that could be done. So 2 minutes. What are there?
Well, so, I mean, what do you think, just like the variety of plants that we do in our greenhouse where we just start them from cuttings? I mean, do you think that starting from a cutting instead of from seed works in that as well?
Probably. He did say if you're going to transplant. So I told him that a lot of y'all have like greenhouse floriculture type cells and stuff like that. So he said if you're starting something in here, that when you transplant it outside of this, that you have to keep the pot saturated for days until it slowly gets used to not being in a solid water situation. So, because I asked the same thing, because I'm sitting here thinking I could start flowers, because they have the flower pods as well, and stock, like the flower stock, and some different things like that. If I start those in here, then I could transplant them outside. And he just said, if you do that, you have to keep it well saturated for the first few days as the roots harden off, and then it can go into a normal growing. But like if I move this soybean at this point in time, it's not going to survive. So just keep that in mind. If you try to move them. He said small. So as soon as they germinate, move them then, and then, but that could also be an experiment for a student. Like if you wanted to do the petunias, or if you wanted to do cuttings of something, and just see how quickly it has to move once it gets some roots on it.
What was I meant to ask him the plan for the corn. Like if, even with the farm, you can only get up to 30, 2, 4, whatever.
So there are dwarf corn varieties. Okay. There's patio corn. If you go look on like Johnny's Seed or Burpees, and some of they'll have like patio corn, or that's meant to be in a pot. Okay. And it only grows like 3 feet tall. Okay. Yeah.
How long does the water, how often do you have to redo your water reservoir?
So I've only added water to this so far. This has been going since June 1st. And I've added water last week. And I added a Joe's cup of water.
I was trying to figure out, like a weekend or like a fall break scenario. Would we have to come back, if we were going out of town, would it last, 3 or 4 days of that time frame until we got back in on them?
So I think if you had the full-grown tomatoes, you would maybe have to worry. If you just had started a project and are gone, so I was gone the whole week of like the 5th through the 9th of June, and it was fine that week. When you do start it, I was one of those people that didn't read the full instruction booklet that David was talking about. And so when you start it the first time, like in the morning, if you hold down the light button until it turns on, it comes on at that same time every day. So that way it actually is on when you're not there. Because I told him, I was like, yeah, they got a little leggy because I was gone all last week and was only here a few times to turn the lights on. He's like, well, just hold down the button and it'll turn on at the same time every day. And I was like, oh. So that was me on the phone with David, not having read the instructions. Okay, well, I am over time. I hope this gave y'all some ideas. Please be on the lookout for an email. If you want an Aerogarden, please fill out. It'll be a Microsoft form whenever it comes out. Y'all have a great day.